Welcome back, everyone. In this lecture, we're going to focus on installing Python and the Jupyter Notebook, the main development environment we use in this course. So we're going to start by getting set up for the course, and that includes installing the free Anaconda Python distribution, and then showing you how to run both Anaconda Navigator and run Jupyter straight from the Anaconda command prompt, as well as navigate folders within Jupyter. Keep in mind, if you already have Python installed, feel free to skip to the next lecture for the course environment setup. I also want to point out that you do not need to use the Jupyter Notebook system as a development environment for this course. Everything we show in this course is just Python code that should work in any preferred development environment. Please do not feel forced to use Jupyter if you dislike using Jupyter. I do, however, ask that if you've never used it before, give it a try. A lot of people like it, especially for data science and data visualization. Okay, so what is the Anaconda distribution? It's a free and open source Python distribution that includes many tools along with the Python programming language. This includes things like an environment manager, a download manager, and a graphical interface to access a variety of development environments. Let's begin by Google searching Anaconda download. The main reason I suggest just Google searching this is because sometimes the download URL can change slightly. So let's head over to the browser and search for the correct download. Alright, here I am at Google. What we're going to do is simply do a Google search for Anaconda download and then hit Google search, and this should take you to a download page for Anaconda. So anaconda.com products individual is the current URL, but keep in mind the Anaconda page could have been changed and the URL could have been changed by the time you're viewing this. So you may have a slightly different URL, but in general we're looking to download the free individual edition of Anaconda. So for instance, if I click on anaconda.com, you'll notice that there's a list of products. What we're looking for is not any commercial edition or team edition that you have to pay for. What we're looking for is the open source individual edition. So if you click on that first link, it should take you to product/individual. And on this page, keep in mind this page does tend to change its look from time to time. So it may look slightly different to you, but overall what we're looking for is individual edition, open source distribution, and there should be a download link somewhere on this page. And if you click on that, it'll scroll down and give you the three main Anaconda installers. Choose the Anaconda installer that is appropriate for your operating system. If you're on Windows 64-bit, go ahead and choose this graphical installer. 32-bit, choose this graphical installer. Mac OS, I highly recommend you choose the graphical installer for Mac OS, not the command line installer. And then for Linux, you also have these two options. Now I'm currently on a 64-bit Windows computer, so what I'm going to do is click on 64-bit graphical installer. I'll go ahead and click that, and you'll notice it's going to begin installing an executable file. And as a quick note, I would recommend that if you're completely new to Anaconda, you check out this 15-minute tutorial link that it has here to kind of explain what Anaconda does and what it can do for you, or just check out the quick start guide. So what we're going to do is essentially, once this is done downloading, is show you how to install Anaconda. Again, we're looking at the individual free open source version, not these paid services that are optional in case you want to expand the capabilities of Anaconda. But open source free edition is more than enough for us. I'm going to fast forward until this is done downloading. Alright, the executable file has finished downloading, so now it's time to install it. As a quick note, if you're running this on Mac OS or Linux and want to see the exact step-by-step instructions that are official from Anaconda, what you can do is come to Resources and then go to Help and Training. I'm going to open that in a new tab. And if you come to Help and Training, you'll notice that there's the documentation for the individual edition. And if you click on See Documentation, click on Installation under the documentation, and it has step-by-step instructions for Windows. And if you click on that, here are the step-by-step instructions that we're actually going to do. If you're on Mac OS, click Installing on Mac OS. Again, the graphical install. It's pretty straightforward. You pretty much just go along with the install here. And same for Linux. It has kind of step-by-step instructions for how to install everything. So you can always find the written out step-by-step that we're going to do here in this video in Help and Training, Resources, Help and Training, See Documentation for Individual Edition, click Installation, and then see all these installing options. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this executable file. Once it's running, what we're going to do is set up Anaconda. So we'll click on Next here, go ahead and agree to the license agreement, And then depending on whether or not you have admin permissions on your computer, you could do just me or all users. I'll do just me. And then I'm going to install it here under Anaconda 3. I would also suggest that you use the default destination. All right, and here's a very important step for Windows users. You'll notice it has this checkbox and it says that it's not recommended to check it. If this is your first installation of Python and you intend to use this distribution of Anaconda as your main source for actually running Python code, then I would actually recommend that you install it and add it to your path environment variable. Basically what this means is that if you were to open up the Windows command prompt and type Python, it would come first and search for the Anaconda version of Python before looking at any other pre-installed Python. And if you're following along this course and you intend to use this as your main distribution, then we actually do recommend adding Anaconda 3 to my path environment variable. If later on and you decided not to check this box and want to add it to your path, what you can do is open up Anaconda 3 with the Windows Start menu and then select Anaconda 64-bit, and then this Add to Path option will essentially be the same thing as clicking this box here. For simple use cases, I actually do recommend that you click this box. So I will go ahead and click that box and just add it to my path environment variable since I want Anaconda 3 to be found first. So then we'll hit install. And my Anaconda installation is now complete. So I will go ahead and click next. And you'll notice it says working with Python and Jupyter Notebooks is a breeze with PyCharm Professional, etc. We don't actually need to worry about installing PyCharm. It's just another development environment option for you. There's pretty much a wider range of environments you can choose from. We'll be using Jupyter Notebook for this course because we think it's the best one for learning data science, data visualization, and machine learning. But if you already have a preference for your own Python environment, please feel free to use it. So we'll go ahead and skip this little kind of advertisement there. And then what we're going to do is we're also just going to skip the tutorial and then skip learning more about Anaconda. Those are actually the first two links that we showed you earlier. And then hit finish, and you should be good to go. Okay, now that we've finished installing Anaconda, let's show you the two ways to run it. One is through the Anaconda Navigator. To do this, search your computer for Anaconda Navigator. So I'm going to search for Anaconda Navigator. So I'm going to open up the Anaconda Navigator app, and you may need to run this as an administrator on some computers, specifically on some work computers, but go ahead and open up and click on Anaconda Navigator in order to run. Upon clicking that, you should see it beginning to initialize, and sometimes this takes a while, especially on the first time you're running Anaconda Navigator, so be patient while it loads, but eventually you should see this graphical interface pop up for Anaconda Navigator. Okay, here we are at Anaconda Navigator. It'll ask you whether or not you want to send reports to Anaconda. Feel free to send the reports or not send the reports. I'm just going to hit OK here. And right now it's loading a little bit more content. And there we go. So now we have Anaconda Navigator, which is essentially a graphical interface for the various development environments that Anaconda comes with. You'll notice that it has Jupyter Lab, Jupyter Notebook, a PowerShell prompt for you, as well as Qt Console, Spider, GlueViz, Orange 3, and even RStudio. So Anaconda is essentially packaged not just Python, but a bunch of development environments for you. For the course in general, we are using Jupyter Notebook, not Jupyter Lab, although it's extremely similar, but Jupyter Notebook. Just something to keep in mind. You will also notice this tab over on the left-hand side that says Environment. You'll notice I have a list of many environments, but we'll show you later on how to create environments in the next lecture. For right now, just come back to home and let's practice opening up the Jupyter Notebook, which is the main development environment we work with. Hit Launch over here, and what's going to happen is it's going to launch in your browser, and we recommend the Chrome browser for this, the Jupyter Notebook system. And the Jupyter Notebook system, again, it's a development environment that allows us to quite easily open up Jupyter Notebook files and edit those files and edit Python code. When you run this, you'll essentially be looking at a directory of your computer, and you can see that you should be able to scroll down here and go to your desktop folder, your downloads folder, etc. And this is where you can navigate to wherever you unzipped our notebook files. So recall, in the course overview lecture, the very first lecture of the course, that welcome to the course lecture, you were supposed to download the zip file from that. And then after downloading that zip file, unzip it somewhere on your computer, and then you should be able to go to it using Jupyter. So for example, for my particular setup here, I have this Pyrian Data Courses folder, and then I can scroll down here and I can see a variety of folders here available to me, and I can click on these, and eventually as I look further and further into these, I can see notebooks to open. So for example, this Intro to Simple Linear Regression notebook that I have on my computer, I can click on it, open it, and here I have it open. And what's nice about this is it can view visualizations all in line along with the notes and links we provided for you. This is what makes Jupyter Notebook, in our opinion, the really best for learning on data visualization and machine learning and just being able to keep in notes. So let's show you how to start your own notebook in case you want to. I'm going to click on this, shut it down. Let's go back home. Notice there's this directory. I'm going to come back home here, and then what I'm going to do is say new Python 3 notebook. And then what we can do here is type Python code directly in the notebook. To run a cell, you can either say cell run cells, or you can just do Shift Enter. So we can say Shift Enter, and then that will run the cell. You can also do Alt Enter in order to kind of insert a new cell below that. If you want to make one of these cells a markdown cell for notes, simply say cell, cell type, markdown. Notice now it's a markdown cell, which means it accepts markdown text. And that allows you to do things like bullet points or things like large font. If you do not know markdown syntax, that's okay. It's just something to keep in mind, that this essentially allows you to take notes. Then run this cell, and notice it's converted into that text. Again, it does this using markdown formatting, which if you're not familiar with, it's not a big deal. Just keep the understanding that a markdown cell allows you to take notes that is not actually Python being run. These other cells actually do run Python commands, so you can say something like print hello, Shift Enter, and run that. Okay. So Jupyter Notebook is pretty easy to use, and we're going to get more and more comfortable with it as we continue on through the course. And you can definitely check out the Help User Interface tour here that will essentially guide you and give you a notebook. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the setup for Anaconda Navigator and being able to open Jupyter Lab or Jupyter Notebook, Spyder, any development environment within Anaconda. And it's hopefully set up for you. But as far as actually accessing the course notes through Jupyter, through Anaconda Navigator, you have to make sure that you've already downloaded the zip file of notebooks and then unzipped it to actually see the notebook file or .ipynb extension content. And now that we have Jupyter Notebook running, you should be able to easily navigate to wherever you save those files on your computer. So again, if you haven't done so, make sure you download that zip file, unzip it, and save it somewhere on your computer where you can easily access it, like your downloads folder, desktop, documents, etc. Okay, so now that we have Anaconda set up, we're able to run Jupyter Notebook, and you have access to the notes, we still need to make sure that you have all the same versions of the Python libraries that we're going to be using throughout the course. To do this, we need to set up and import the course environment file. This is actually super easy to do with Anaconda Navigator, so let's see you in the next lecture where we set up the environment. I'll see you there.